Hi guys, welcome to my video. I've got this old computer. The hard drive's about at it. It's an OCZ Vertex 4 and I'm not quite sure whether it's worth replacing or not. It's one of the kids' old computers. I've just built them all new computers, so this one is sort of a spare. I'm going to have a look at it, see if I can overclock it a bit, see if we can get a bit of extra speed out of it, to see whether or not it's worth putting a new hard drive in it or not. Right, so the power supply in it's a decent one. It's a Corsair 600 watt power supply. It's getting on a bit, but it's still doing a good job. And it's got a 560 graphics card. It's a 560 Ti. So the voltages all look pretty good. The temperatures on it look pretty good. It's got the Intel CPU cooler on it, but it's actually the thick one with the copper core, not the thin one that's no good. So I think it's going to be okay. I think this particular processor is a Q9400. I think it's soldered, so I don't think the temperature is going to be a massive problem. Not overclocking it a bit anyway, but we'll find that out. It's got 8 GB of memory. It's actually got 2 different types of memory though, but it's basically DDR2 800 MHz. And you can see there's a 560 Ti in it, and it's running very cool at the minute. Right, so I've just done a quick bench on here, and this is CPU Z, and we've got 917 and 232 for multi-core and single core. I'm going to run Cinebench, the standard settings and overclock settings, and see if we can get some more performance out of it, and whether or not it's worth overclocking and fixing basically. Okay then, so we're in the BIOS. We set the front side bus up a bit. I think I set it to about 400, and now it's running at 3.2 GHz, and it looks like it stopped at the multiplier of 8, so it's going to give us a little bit more performance with that. And if we look on here at the bottom, it's got 3.2, so we know we're running at 3.2, so we should get a bit more performance out of it. The energy saving features don't really do that much on this one anyway, because the multiplier only goes from 6 to 8, which is not a great change. If you look, I set it at 1.4 volts. It's actually running 1.368 by looking at it. So there's a bit of voltage droop in it, which sort of you expect. Right, so I just need to see what the memory is running at now. So let's go on to the memory. So it looks like from that, running the front side bus at that 400 is running the memory at 400. Front side bus to DRAM's 1.1, so that's running at 800 MHz, and it's 800 MHz memory. So we should be able to get a bit more out of it, because I'm running at a slightly higher voltage. If you look there, we've got the next tab, DDR2 6400, so that's G-Skill, and at 500 MHz it's supposed to run at 2.1 volts, so that's 1000 in effect. And the second one we've got 400 MHz Crucial, and at 500 MHz 5.5 same timings, it runs at 2 volts. So again, I'm running the whole lot at 2.1 at the minute in the BIOS, so hopefully we can get it up to 1000 MHz out of it, but yeah, we'll see. Running at high memory speeds on this DDR2 is sometimes not easy, so we'll give it a try. So first thing is I want to see if we're reasonably stable, so I'm going to bench it again and just do a quick bench the CPU and see what we got. So we've got 279 and 1099, 280. So that's a little bit of an increase, which is not bad. It may not be stable at the minute, but I'm going to see if we can get some more performance out of it first, before I check for stability. Right, we've changed a few settings in the BIOS, and the processor is now running at 3360 all the time. Temperatures are still good, and the score's gone up in CPU Z now. A single core 293 and 1152, so I think there's still a little bit of performance left in this processor, so I think we're going to push it a bit harder. Right, so these are the settings I've currently got. Go down a bit. So what we've got set. So we're pushing some of the voltage a bit now and turning some things off that we don't need. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to leave it at these settings and just keep increasing the front side bus to see where we're stable at. This processor is proving very difficult to overclock, even with high voltages. I've got it to 3.424 at the minute, and the score's now gone to 300 and 1155, so it's a bit faster, but yeah, it's proving very difficult. I've upped quite a lot of voltages and it just won't get past pretty much where I am now, and I've gone a lot further as well, just in case of the problem at 1 speed, but it won't have it. And I've put in even 1.5 volts into the processor and 1.72 volts into the CPU PLL voltage, so you can't really go much more than that. So yeah, I'm probably going to give this another crack tomorrow, see if we can get a bit more speed out of it. Okay guys, this is the computer we're dealing with. I'm struggling to get any real speed out of this processor. I keep getting a Southbridge overheat problem, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this heatsink off and the lower heatsink, reapply the thermal paste, put it back together and see if that helps. The actual motherboard's recording quite a low temperature on it, but it's weird, I'm getting an overheat problem at the same time. So we're going to replace it and see if it increases our potential to overclock. So looking at the rear of the board, the clips look very similar to the Intel clips. There's one there, look. So you can just see it spread out at the back of the board. So what I need to do, I think, is grab some pliers, push the two sides in and then pull it out. If you ever thought about taking this heatsink off, this motherboard, I think it's stuck on, it's bonded on. Now I've been getting the overheating error on the Southbridge, which is actually this little one here. I've taken the sticker off, but I'm struggling to get this heatsink off. I think it's stuck on. I've tried everything. I'm about ready to rip the Northbridge off the board completely, and I still can't get it off. So I've got some fishing line now, and I'm going to try and fishing line underneath it and try and get it off that way. If you've not taken the heatsinks off of this, then I recommend you don't try. It's an absolute nightmare. That's actually the Northbridge. I'm just polishing it up now with a small oil stone just to try and get it flat. Once you've got it flat, you know there's going to be good contact with the heatsink. I'm just going to put some thermal paste on it, just a small amount so it doesn't go on the motherboard. Put the heatsink back on and see how we go. I've got this one to do, try and get that off somehow. And there was a little heat pipe coming off of there, joining the Northbridge to the Southbridge. This one, I've taken that off. I've actually taken it off on purpose. I think the heat from the Northbridge is a lot hotter than the Southbridge, and the heat from this one's going to the smaller one. So I think it's probably going to be better with it off. But if I put this back together and it works, I'll tell you what the temperature changes are. Okay, so I've got this bit of heatsink, and I've just put some new thermal pads on the bottom. It's actually a little bit different thickness. This was the original that came off. It's about adit, and this was about 1/2 mil thick, and I've gone for a 1 mil thick replacement. So that's on there. I just need to peel this off now. I'll put it on quite well. It's stuck on quite well. Just need to peel the cellophane off the top and put it back on. Push the pins through the motherboard and that'll be back on. There's the heat pipe that I snapped off on purpose. This one joined the Northbridge at this location here to the Southbridge. The Southbridge, the bottom of it was not in the best condition, nowhere near flat, etc. I'm not going to spend ages trying to polish it down. I don't think it's worth it. I'm going to put some MX4 on there and on there, MX4 on there. I'll polish this down a little bit so it's a bit smoother than it was. If you look, the heat pipe coming that way, it finishes here by looking at it. So I think the one that I snapped off here won't influence the heat pipe going this way. It's just stopping the heat from the North Bridge actually going to the South Bridge. And I think that's what's been happening, and the South Bridge has been overheating. So I'm hoping taking that off is going to cure the problem. Also, there was a thermal pad at this location. I'll probably just put another one on top as I build it. Right, so I've put these two heat sinks on. I've pushed them down, and if you look, you can just see now that it's been trapped in there. So that should cool all them components and underneath there. And that's where the thermal pad was originally, on top of this to the heatsink above. So when you push them back through, just make sure they are fully home, so you can push the pin up. There you go, and make sure it's not going to come back out. So that's fully home. The key thing though is make sure you push down on it all the way along, so you've got good contact from the heatsink to the electronic components. Right, so I've just roughly positioned the North Bridge heatsink where it wants to go. I've actually put a thermal pad under here from this heatsink to this heatsink. Don't really think it's doing a lot, but I think it's just to stop vibration more than anything else. Now we've got these special screws, and these screws have got the springs in. They're a bit like graphics card screws, where you tighten it down and you can only tighten it so much, and the spring gives you the tension. So I've just on the underside of the board, I'll put the copper plate, and I'm just going to line up these screws with the holes and nip them down. So I'll just nip that one in. Now I'm going to nip the other one in, the opposite one. So I've got one here somewhere. Magnetic screwdriver really helps. Just move it a fraction. The amount of thermal paste you put on the underside of this, it doesn't want to be massive. You don't want it spreading out everywhere. And if you flatten the bottom of the heatsink, it should almost be metal to metal, which is what you want. Right, so I'll tighten that one up a bit. Tighten this one up a bit. You see it pulling the heatsink down. Right, now I'm going to put the two opposite ones in. Put that one in. Right, so that's down and it's nipped quite reasonably tight. Let's go down a fraction more. That's nipped reasonably tight. I think this wants to be reasonably tight. Don't overdo it, otherwise you'll snap the screws off. They're only tiny threads. I think it wants to be reasonably tight, and that's okay. There we go. That's on there pretty solid now. So now I've just got the Southbridge to do. I'm just going to put a bit of thermal paste on this as well, and we'll see how we go. Again, you don't want to put too much on because it'll end up coming around the outside and all on the parts, which is not what you want. But I'm going to try and spread it out a little bit. Make sure it's got a good contact, and we have got enough on there. It was pretty much bonded on there before, which is not what you want. It's quite difficult to take off. I'm hoping I've not damaged the board taking it off, but you know, it got to a point where every time I was turning the board on, it kept coming up with an error on overheating. So it was taking it off and trying it, or throwing the board away anyway. So we've got the heatsink. I think it actually went around this way. This is the cutout here for the thermal pipe that used to come across. Now I've obviously taken that off. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put this on. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to wobble it around a little bit to start with. Just have a quick look on the underside. That feels quite nice. That feels quite good. It's actually stuck. Even with the thermal paste like that, it's actually stuck down quite well. So I think I'm reasonably happy with that. So moving that around, I think there'll be a good contact between the heatsink and the chip underneath. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to push the pins through the holes, hopefully. See if I can line it up first. There we go. So you can see the pin come through there. Let's grab that. Let's get the other one. Of course, heatsink still moves, but it's almost stuck on there with stiction, if you like. Just trying to get the next one through. Right, there we go, and that's gone in. So that's actually in now. Obviously better there. See, that's in, and that's the pad on the other side. It looks very, very close to some of the components actually, the centre. I'm hoping that's going to be alright, but it's how it was originally. I think only time will tell. Okay, so that's on. You can see it still wobbles a little bit, but that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. That's solid, and that's on. So the board's now back to how I wanted it. It's just got the thermal pipe missing from this location to this location. Now I think this is an individual thermal pipe. There's one coming across here, and I think there's one coming across here. So me breaking this one off here shouldn't affect the thermal pipe going this way. And also in the thermal pipe there's only a fraction, tiny bit of water, so taking it off there, it won't matter. I'm going to put the memory back into the motherboard, but I've actually got two different makes of memory. One's Crucial, it's DDR2 memory, so it's very, very old, and one's G-Skill. Now they're both 800 megahertz memory. The timings are very slightly different, but they're very, very close. This one can run at 2 volts, this one can run at 2.1 volts, and I've been running them both at about 2.2, so it doesn't really matter. The important thing is here, what you don't want to do is mix and match in the same channel. So the different channels are always different colours. So it goes to show that you know, the same memory wants to go in the same colours. So here I've got wants to go that way around to match the slot in the motherboard. So that one wants to go in there. There we go, it's clicked in. It's in properly. And this one then wants to go in that colour. I'm going to put one of the G-Skills in next. So it's not that way, it's that way. Just line the slots up. There we go. Make sure the clips are on. So we've got a G-Skill one, so the blue and the blue. It's that way around. Just push it down. It's in. That way around. So now I've got the same type of memory, or the same memory modules in the same channels, and that should be okay. I think that's in. Yeah, that's all in. Yeah, there we go, and that's all installed. Right, so good news is that the computer's turned on, and I've got into the BIOS, which is good, and the temperatures now are really low. So we've got a Southbridge of 23 and a Northbridge of 25. So I'm not sure if it's cured the motherboard, but the good thing is, after all us messing around with it, we've got this far, so it can't be all bad. So I'm going to try and load Windows and see what happens, just for the stock settings to start with, I think. And if it's all good, then I'm going to try and overclock it again and see what we can get. Okay, so it all seems to be running okay. And we've got all the memory seems to be accounted for, and it's running at 800 megahertz. So I think that's good news. There is one temperature there, I'm not quite sure what that is, but it's 56 degrees. I'm assuming that's the Southbridge or the Northbridge. But whichever way, I'm not getting the over temperature warnings when I first turn the motherboard on. So I think, touch wood, we might have cured that. Yeah, so we've warmed the computer a bit now, and it's clear there that the Southbridge temperature now is a lot cooler than it was before. It's at 29.5, Northbridge 45. So maybe taking that heat pipe off has actually helped the Southbridge a bit. Right, so we're just upping this a bit now. Let's go for 440. And the problem is now, if this crashes, it might lose all my settings, so I think I'm going to save it. So we'll save that. And we'll restart it. I seem to have got the most out of this particular processor. I think I've got a bit of a dud. It might be the fact that the memory is holding me back a bit. We've got a score of 308.8 single core and 1221 multi-core. That's running a CPU V core 1.44, 1.45-ish. It's set to about 1.48 in the BIOS. So there's some of the voltages. The temperature's still really good. So it's not a temperature that's holding me back. It's more the processor, the motherboard, or the memory. One of them. I suspect it's probably the memory, unless I've just got a bad processor. We're running it at 3.551 at the minute. That's with that score. So we've just done the Cinebench R20 run, and we got 836 points, which is not bad. So that's running at 3.56. And the runs I've done previous are down here. So we started off at 612. The 3.2 overclock we get 728, 3.51 803, and 3.56 836. I don't think there's a lot more left in this, but we're going to have another go still, see what we can come up with. Right, so these are some of the settings I've got to run the 3.56. So the overclock's on the manual. It's got the 8 times multiplier. The front side bus is at 444 at the minute. That means the memory's been running at 888 and it's 800 megahertz memory, so I'm going to adjust the memory voltage quite a bit to get it to run at that. Let's go down a bit. These are some of the settings I've got. So the AI clock twister's on light, CPU voltage 1.48, PLL 1.7, Northbridge 1.71, memory is 2.1, front side bus termination voltage 1.6, CPU GTL reference on 0.63, Northbridge is on 0.67. What else have we got? Disable the CPU spread spectrum and the PCI spread spectrum. We've also got the C1E support's obviously off, CPU TM support's disabled, the Vanderpool's disabled, and the Max CPU ID is disabled. So they're the settings I've got that seem to be reasonably stable for running that particular speed. I'm going to have a go overclocking a bit more, I'm going to up these voltages a little bit more. I don't think there's much more left in it.